Hi, I'm Ben. Welcome to my book corner, and this is a video that I didn't expect to make. This is almost a humble pie video. I want to talk a little bit about A Court of Mist and Fury. Now, this isn't a review per se, but I was kind of pressured into reading this by a number of people, because I apparently forced them to read book one, which, if by forced to read, when don't read it, it's rubbish. That's partly forcing people to read it. But I have not had a great track record with Sarah J. Maas's work that I've read so far. The first two books of Throne of Glass are a bit meh for me. They're a little bit uninspiring. And ACOTAR was rage-inducing for a number of different reasons. But I sidestepped rereading book one, but I have dove into book two, and pretty good for what it is, to be fair. I had a load of issues with book one, be it the paper-thin world building, the plot conveniences, the dislikable characters, because the characters leading that book, as a rule of thumb, were not characters that you could really root for. The exception being Lucian, who is kind of done a little bit dirty in this book as well. In book two, I should say. Our main character of Feyre is a walking plot device who suffers a great deal from tell and don't show, and then show the exact opposite. I mean, in book one, she has the survival instincts of a drunken lemming stood on a skyscraper roof. And despite the fact she does appear to have the survivability of a paper towel in a hurricane, she somehow actually makes it through the book via plot armor. Book two rectifies this. Now, is book two perfect? No, but I feel like I need to come on and explain why I've enjoyed book two more. And it's a fact of consistency. The first three chapters of this book I hated, and it threatened to lose me in the back 15% as well. And I think that's just the nature of the genre. The relationship between Feyre and Tamlin and the love never felt earned. It never felt genuine. It felt like lust at best, and it was definitely an unhealthy relationship. Tamlin as a character, I cannot stand. I didn't particularly like him in book one. I especially did not like him in book two. And Feyre, again, didn't particularly like her in book one. She was fine for big stretches of this, although she very much has a double standard going on in terms of herself versus others. But why this works better is to do with internal consistency. Feyre in this book is very, very rarely the victim of plot armor to get her through things. There are a couple of exceptions to this, the ability to read in like a month being the most egregious example, although I do have ways I can explain that one away. But the way she feels and the trauma she's gone through after the events of book one, and her reaction to what's going on around her, to me, makes sense. As does Tamlin's overprotective approach because of everything that he went through and he saw Feyre go through. And the misunderstanding of what he's doing to protect her and why he's doing that makes character sense. I don't like it. I think it's stupid. But it does make sense in a twisted sort of way. The trouble with Tamlin as a character, no redeeming attributes at all. Be it his relationship with his friends, his confidants, his advisors, or his own kingdom, there is nothing that makes me think of this character as a good character, as a noble character. And for Feyre to have this love for them, which feels like it holds over, doesn't work. And that's kind of the biggest issue I have with this book. The other issue, which carries over from book one as well, is the fact that the High Fae just feel like humans that have lived a long time and have magical bloodlines. They're too human for me personally. As a rule of thumb, there are characters in here that do kind of break from that, but as a rule of thumb, they feel too normal. which feels like a weird thing to say. And that's an expectations thing on my experience of reading Fae lore and Fae stories elsewhere previously. But just the internal consistency works throughout. When Feyre fails in here, it makes sense because it's based on her experience in the situation she's finding herself in. So the decisions she's making never feel like they're happening as a rule of thumb because plot. They're happening because she doesn't have the experience to make a better choice. And I like that. Add into the fact that your ensemble cast here of Rhysand, Morrigan, Cassian, begins with A, he's an Azrael, and Amren. Far more engaging, far more positive attributes about them. We get more backstory as well. I realise there's bits of Tamlins we haven't got yet, but again, there's stuff here that first of all makes some of these characters sympathetic in places. We understand their characters, but there's a warmth there. There is a found family thing here, which you didn't get in book 1. And then just the natural chemistry between those characters works better. The chemistry between Rhysand and Feyre works better as well. Now, other things that I don't like in here, the fated mates trope is one that I don't like. And that kind of started to derail the back half of the book for me. Although I do really like the conclusion, although I do think Tamlin's an idiot for not clicking on what's going on. But again, makes sense for his character. And that's kind of the biggest thing here. The world feels more alive. It feels more realised. It feels coherent. And it might be a case of low expectations, although in fairness, my expectations for book 1 were not high. But I was dreading reading this. And this falls 4 stars, maybe a 3.75, because it kept me engaged. I read it in a couple of days. Very few points did this infuriate me. There were a few. It got me theory crafting about the world in my own head, sometimes to explain things away which may have been little plot points and plot holes. But it got me engaged and immersed in a way that book 1 and the Throne of Glass books really haven't done, at least so far. So I won't be sorry to move on to book 3. Now, will I love book 3? Who knows? Maybe it'll repeat some of the same mistakes from book 1, especially because it looks like it's more Tamlin focused because of the ending of this one. I just think in terms of quality of the writing, this didn't feel as flat in terms of writing, whether that's because Maas has a better editor or it's just a case of natural learning process. The pacing was good. The world building, whilst I would still prefer more, was solid. You had all these different sort of hints at other things going on as well, which never got necessarily fleshed out, but you got hints of stuff that was there. And that's what I wanted from book 1. Still hate the fact they don't feel like Fae. But, you know, I suppose you can't have everything. So there we go. That's my quick thoughts on A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, a book that surprised me. But that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please consider giving it a thumbs up and comment down below if you've read this or any of Maas's other series and what you think of them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all very soon.